So is it available to anyone on campus to download who has a computer, or is it going to be only on campus computers? I heard that it might not be available for Macs. Is that true?
We were told by the provider that it would work on newer Macs, and older Macs could do it if people bought equipment. I had a report over the weekend from Nicole Kapp that she believes that all Mac users need to spend some extra money to use it. We'll check that out starting today with the provider, because it's not the understanding that we had. It is available to anybody who's got a Windows operating system on their computer, and ISS will be loading it up on the computers that they control, and we'll be offering it through Academic Technologies and over to the Medical Center based on whatever agreement is appropriate. But we have authority to put it on 25,000 computers, and we have a way to track how that's happening.
Do you have a secondary way of contacting people if it turns out that this system can't be updated for Macs, or is your primary goal right now to try to get the system to work with Macintosh?
Well, we understand that it will work with Macintosh, and we may have to enhance the instructions that were provided with it. If we find out that that's wrong, we're still able to reach more people with this than we are with AlertDC. AlertDC will give the same kind of information that we're passing with this, but this is a clearer path to campus advisories.
Can you tell me a little about what the goals of that task force were when President Knapp put it together versus kind of where you ended up with it, and how you think that's going to help him going forward?
Well, he set up a rather broad review based on the governor's task force report and then the Virginia Tech internal report. And we looked at the recommendations that were involved in both of those reports, and there were two committees of the task force. Safety and Security, which I co-chaired with Dolores Stafford, and then there was a separate group that looked at how folks who may be having challenges that could make them a threat to themselves or others are managed within the system. And between the two task forces, we had 101 recommendations that were evaluated, and of those we were able to put forward recommendations for each of them as to whether we should continue what we're doing or whether additional efforts might be useful for the university, and those recommendations are with President Knapp now.
Do you know if there's a time frame for when they would be implemented, or when those recommendations are going to be released?
I don't know when they'll be released, and that will be based on when the president has finished his review.
Okay, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but you came here in December 2001 following September 11th, and that's a big event which affects the nation. And then you also have this Virginia Tech shooting, which almost specifically affects colleges, although it obviously impacts everyone in the United States. How did those two events, because of their different scales, but their direct effect on us as a Washington, D.C. school and as a school, kind of affect you differently when you approached your job?
For emergency management, any large event like that, which calls into question how the university would respond, will affect us. For example, you didn't mention, but in the same scale, was the impact that Hurricanes Katrina and Rita had in the Gulf Coast area. And we undertook a major review of how a school with very similar demographics and considerations as us was affected in the New Orleans area. We learn from each of these events, and they give us insight into whether we're preparing properly or not. Fortunately, we've found in most cases that the approach we're taking is fairly sound. And in addition to that, we work hard to not only train to be prepared with those who have to make decisions and direct resources, but we exercise the plans that are in place. And by doing that, we've been able to identify ways to improve the plan.